Hello there, welcome to the Football Bloc. My name is Brandon. Today I'm going to give you my prediction for the 2024 Copa América Final, as well as a third place match as well. So if that sounds interesting, let's hop right into it.
One step beyond.
So the Copa América Final is finally here. It all comes down to this match. We have Argentina versus Colombia, and it'll be between these two teams who will have the crown of the Americas and will be the king of the continents, or two continents, depending on who you ask. But before we get to the final, let's not forget about the third place match between Uruguay and Canada. Still an important game. We still have to focus on that one there. And if we look at these two teams together, we have Canada on one side, Uruguay on the other side. Both of these teams have earned their spot up until this point. They've played some good football, and they really deserve this spot here in the semifinals, in my opinion, at least. If you look at Uruguay, they were drawn into a group with the U.S., Panama, and Bolivia. They made light work of all the games there, and then they went up against Brazil in the quarterfinals. There's the gargantuan task of eliminating Brazil. They did just enough to get through. They had to go through on penalties, and then they played Colombia in the semifinals in a game that I think really could have gone either way. Ultimately, Colombia was a better team on the night, but there's no shame in losing to this electric Colombian team. Therefore, they find themselves in this spot, competing for third place right here against Canada, who has been the number one surprise team of the tournament. There's been a few teams here that have played well, exceeded expectations, but Canada has by far exceeded all their expectations. Many people, including myself, thought that they'd be out after the first round. In fact, I thought they'd lose every single one of their games. But Jesse Marsch has just guided this team forward. He has reshaped the team. Offensively, they're not super strong, but defensively, they are very, very good. They did just enough to nick a win against Peru, and then they tied Chile. And with those 4 points, they went through into the quarterfinals, where they went up against Venezuela, and they actually played really well against Venezuela. In my opinion, they outplayed them. Yes, it went to penalties, but it was a wonder goal from Venezuela that equalized, and also there was some refereeing controversy there. Canada went through on penalties, and then they went up against Argentina yet again in the semifinals, and obviously Argentina, being who they are, we'll get to them in a minute, they were able to comfortably beat Canada, leading Canada to this spot right here. Now, you know, like I just said, Canada exceeded a ton of expectations to get up until this point. They definitely earned their spot, but there's still a huge gap between them and Uruguay, whether it be the players on the pitch, the way that they play, the style, that the team mentality, also the managers as well. I think Jesse Marsch has done a wonderful job. I'm not the biggest fan of Jesse Marsch. I know a lot of people talk about him coaching the U.S. I don't know how that would turn out, but I have to, give credit where credit is due. He has done a wonderful job in this tournament specifically, but he's going up against Marcelo Bielsa, in my opinion, one of the best managers of all time, extremely revolutionary and creative manager. So with that gargantuan task facing Canada, I don't think that they have enough to overcome Uruguay. Like every other game in this tournament, I think it's going to be really close. You also have to acknowledge the fact that the whole debacle at the end of the semifinal between Colombia and Uruguay, where the players were in the stands trying to defend their families, there was a huge fight and stuff like that. It remains to be seen if some of the players will be suspended for this game, in particular Darwin Nunez, who was really getting into it with some of the fans. As we're recording this video, there hasn't been any punishments handed out yet. So that could, potentially change how this team will line up. But even if you don't have Darwin Nunez starting, or maybe a few other starters, I still think that the edge has to be given to Uruguay. It'll be close, but I'm going to say that Uruguay wins 1-0 off a set-piece goal. And then they will secure themselves as the third place, the bronze medalist for the 2024 Copa America. I think they're just such a much more professional team. This is a top-class team we're talking about. The way that they defend as a unit, the talent that they have in the midfield, how they're able to control the game, and then just how lethal their attack is. Canada has a very good structure to their team, specifically in the defense, but I mean, this is mostly a bunch of guys that play in the MLS, and their attack on paper is actually not bad at all, but they've been kind of firing at blanks. The only attacker who's done really, really well on a consistent basis has been Schaffelberg. But taking all that into consideration, like I said, I think it'll be 1-0 to Uruguay. Now let's go on to the centerpiece event that we have. We have the Copa América Final going to be played in Miami. We have Argentina, the defending Copa América champions from 2021, the defending world champions from 2022, and then also, you can't forget the Finalissima in between those two tournaments where they defeated the reigning European champions. So, at least on paper, statistically speaking, they are the absolute best team in the world. And if they win this title here, I mean, we're already, in a dynasty, you could say, but this will solidify it. A Copa America, a World Cup, and another Copa America to follow it up. That will be an insane run of trophies there. Compare that to Colombia. They are a team that, of course, earned their way to this final. They have been, in my opinion, the most exciting team to watch. And just in terms of how they've played, it's between them and Uruguay, who's been the best team this tournament. And given that Colombia beat Uruguay, I think you have to say Colombia has just, on paper, objectively speaking, they are the best team this tournament. The way that they played, the way that they lit up each of their games, the way that they've blown away some of their opponents, they've been the best. And Colombia has won the Copa America before. They won it in 2001 when they hosted the tournament there, and that was a very strange tournament. Argentina, speaking of them, weren't in the tournament. They pulled out for political reasons. There was, a bunch of controversial political stuff going on, some political turmoil in Colombia heading into the tournament. The tournament was canceled. It was greenlit again. They had to switch out a bunch of teams. Colombia ended up facing Mexico in the final. It's not to say that that victory is inconsequential or not important, because Colombia played amazing that tournament. They didn't concede a single goal. But it's not like Argentina, who has won 15 Copa Americas. If they win this one here, they will have more Copa Americas than anyone else in history. They're currently tied on 15 with Uruguay, which I'm sure the Uruguayans are really kicking themselves that it's not them facing in the final. I imagine that, a narrative right there. The winner of this final becomes the most well-accoladed and most prestigious team in the Americas, and at least in terms of Copa America titles. Colombia, though, I mean, they've gotten far in previous tournaments. They were third in 2021. They were third in 2016, the last time tournament was held here in the United States. And over, I would say, the past 10, maybe 12, 15 years, they've had a very talented crop of players. But now we're seeing all that come to fruition. A lot of people talk about how great the 2014 team was, where you saw, James Rodriguez and Juan Ferrer-Quintero, who both are still with the team, but you also had Juan Cuadrado, Freddy Guarín, Ospina, who's, still in the team but not playing a primary role. And then that team, though, as they lit up the 2014 World Cup, a lot of people thought that would translate to success at the Copa America. They're disappointing in 2015. Like I said, they got third place in 2016, but there was still a gap between them and the top teams like Argentina and Chile. And then, similar story in the subsequent Copa Americas. Now we're finally seeing them get everything together. The way that they're playing, maybe the team's not as talented as it was in 2013, 2014 when they had Falcao and Prime James, all these guys. But James Rodriguez is still there. In my opinion, he's been the absolute best player of this tournament. 1 goal, but 6 assists. He has an assist for every single game that he's played in. Absolutely crazy statistic there. The way that this team, he's the engine of this team, the way that they play. But it's not just him. Luis Diaz has been amazing, as well as has Cordoba, who initially wasn't even the starting striker for Colombia. You have to look at this new, young, and upcoming midfielder, Richard Rios, who has been amazing at the base of the midfield there. Whether it be Uribe or Jefferson Lerma starting alongside Rios, but then also the defense. Mojica and Munoz have been really good. In particular, Munoz. He's been the best right back of this tournament. And then the center backs, the defense. It's just a very well-oiled, well-drilled, and a solid team. Now, will that be enough to stop Argentina? I mean, if you look at Argentina, the way that they play throughout this tournament, I don't think we've necessarily seen the best of Argentina, if I'm being perfectly honest. Yes, if you just look at the statistics, they didn't concede a single goal throughout the entire group stage. In fact, they've only conceded one goal this entire tournament. They've scored 8 goals this tournament. Lautaro Martinez is the top goal scorer. Julian Alvarez has popped up with a few himself. They did just enough to defeat Canada in the opening game. They were the better team, but Canada made them sweat at times. Similar story against Chile. Argentina held the ball more. They had, more of the possession, more of the chances, but Chile really were knocking on the door. At times, Chile was the more dangerous team, but at the end of the day, Argentina got it done. And then against Peru, at that point, Argentina was guaranteed a spot. Peru was basically out, and Argentina had a pretty easy performance against them. Against Ecuador, though, in the quarterfinals, I thought that Ecuador outperformed Argentina. They wasted a myriad of chances, and as a result, it went to penalties. And, when you have a guy like Dibu Martinez in goal for Argentina, he'll win you the game for you. And then they played Canada again in the semifinals. Again, Canada, very respectful performance from them, but Argentina's going to win that game. And they did. Fairly easy for them. Another 2-0 result there, leading them to the final. And like I said, compare that to Colombia, the way that they've been playing. It's a very different style where they were very, very good against Paraguay. They won 2-1. Perhaps they let Paraguay into the game towards the end of the second half, but then they blew away Costa Rica. And then they outplayed Brazil. They grabbed a, necessary 1 point against them. And then they completely obliterated Panama 5-0. And then they did just enough to defeat Uruguay in a game that was essentially a shootout. It was a very tough and tight game, but Colombia, I think, on the night were just that slightly better, leading them to this point here. And like I said, Argentina, I think, hasn't necessarily been as good as they have been in previous tournaments. They were really good, especially as the knockout round started at the World Cup. Maybe not for the entire 90 minutes, but at least from the entire first half and then most of the second half, they were just unbeatable. They were completely smashing teams. And yes, when you're going up against a team like France or Netherlands that has world-class players, they were able to kind of guide their way back into the game. It took it to penalties, etc. But still, for the majority of the game, Argentina was just a dominant team. And then we also saw that in at moments at the 2021 Copa América. We haven't really seen that here, where yes, they are the better teams in most of their games, but they're not really dazzling. And yes, you have to acknowledge that their expectations are much higher than any other team, but I mean, that's par for the course when you're the defending champions of the Copa América and the World Cup. That's very different than Colombia just essentially smashing all their opponents in every single one of their games. But when you look at these two teams, how they will line up against each other, Argentina, I'd expect to play, the same formation that they have been playing for most of these games with, essentially two holding midfielders. I think that DePaul and Enzo Fernandez have been a little subpar throughout this tournament. Will they show up for the final, or will they, get back to where they should be for the final? Remains to be seen. Who's starting up top is probably going to be a question there. Lautaro Martinez is the top scorer, but Julian Alvarez has been really well, in particular in the last game against Canada. I think he'll probably get the start. And then, of course, the Messi factor. You never know what Messi's going to be up to. To be perfectly honest, though, he hasn't really been at his best. Compare that to how he was in 2021. Best player of the tournament by far. Here, he's only scored one goal, and it was a scuffed shot against Canada in the semifinal. He still had good performance, but it's not up to those lofty standards that he usually has. Now, Colombia has some issues in their lineup. Munoz got sent off against Uruguay. He has been one of their best players, and in my opinion, the best right back of the entire tournament. He is very strong defensively. But also the aggression and the passion that he brings to this team is crucial to how Colombia play. He has also chipped in the goals as well. But he will not play in this match here. So it remains to be seen if they're just going to do a straight swap and have another right back play in there, Santiago Arias most likely, or if they're going to maybe do 3 at the back or something like that. Most likely Nestor Lorenzo is just going to put Arias, who is a competent defender despite being a little old at this stage of his career. In terms of how the two teams will play against each other, Colombia really, I think, can only play one way, and that's this super intense, very fun to watch, electric style of play. They're just going to look to shock and outplay Argentina. As for Argentina themselves, it's probably going to be a much more meticulous, calculated approach where they don't want to overextend themselves, but they don't want to. They're not a team that's just going to sit back and defend either. As always with Argentina teams, under Lionel Scaloni, you have to look at the beginning of the match and at the end of the match is usually when you see them at their most intense points, or also volatile points at times as well. So when you break it down, though, while yes, Colombia has been the better team on paper, or at least in performances, I can't look past this Argentina team for the experience that they have, for the amount of trophies that they've won, for just, the amount of title winners that they have in this squad. In particular, you look at a guy like Di Maria. Every final, he shows up. He scored in the Copa América Final against Brazil. That was a winning goal there. He scored in the Finalissima against Italy. He scored in the World Cup Final against France. I think he will score yet again in this game, especially when you consider that this is his last game for Argentina. He's gonna try and go out with a bang. He has announced that he's retiring from international duty here. I don't think Colombia has that experience yet to compete with this Argentina team. The intensity that they can bring up, even if they're not necessarily playing the best, they know when it's crunch time to just play the smartest, play the most professional way, to do whatever you can to win the trophy here. I think it's going to be a really chippy game. I think it's going to be, maybe a little physical, a lot of cards that are going to be handed out, a lot of fouls. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be close, but I think Argentina is going to come away with a 1-0 victory with a late goal from Di Maria to seal the deal for Argentina. They're going to win back-to-back titles. Let me know if you agree or you disagree. Do you think that Colombia has it in them to shock Argentina, come away with a historic win here, win their second Copa America, defeating this historic and gargantuan titan of a team that is Argentina? Or do you think I'm right in that Argentina is just going to come away with another victory here? Let me know how you think all the match is going to pan out. Who do you think is going to score? If there's going to be any scores, do you think it's going to get a penalties again, which is very possible. Type all your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Follow the Football Bloc on social media. But anyway, guys, my name is Brandon, and this has been the Football Bloc. I hope you have a nice rest of your night.
One step beyond.